Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Lee Perry, and I'm the brand new senior aide to Commissioner Wilson of District 1. Commissioner Wilson is now going to start having virtual office hours. And so, Commissioner, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Lee. First, I want to start by saying I have the most amazing aides in my senior aide. It's especially creative, and so this idea of connecting with you all was really came from her, and I have to really compliment her on that because we want to find different ways to make sure that we have kept our dialogue going, no matter what our processes are in here, and making sure that we're bringing you in to talk to us. So, anyway, I thank you for that idea. How are things going this week? Is that was amazing. So excited. I'm so happy to finally be here and to finally be digging in and actually seeing the process that makes our community tick, our government go. And for good, bad, or ugly, we are rolling.
Well, I'm sure everybody wants to know, like, who are you? Who is Commissioner Nicole Wilson down to the core? Maybe talk a little bit about who you are as a person.
Well, I am a native Floridian. They're few, the proud. Born in Alachua County, actually on University of Florida campus. My father has been with the University of Florida in the medical school there and at the VA. He's a neurologist and a professor at heart. Um, since I was born, and they are still there. My mom is a speech pathologist and was in the public schools when I was growing up. So, both tied into education. And I left Florida for the time that I was in college. I went to school actually at Mercer University in Macon, Georgia. Got a degree in psychology and human services, which is sort of like a human services is like their social work degree. And then moved back to Florida and actually began working in social services as sort of my first career path. Later in life, as a mother, I don't know, lost my mind and decided to go back to law school. Really wanted to dig into policy, thought it was interesting, and I think if you find reading bylaws interesting, you might as well explore law school. And I felt like I could affect the most change by doing that. My sister is a public interest attorney, and I was watching her do really, really amazing things actually in education law and civil rights. And she inspired me to go back to law school, and I really could see making some headway. Of course, coming out of law school, I realized that even if I was a zealous advocate, that there were obstacles within our bureaucracy and within our government. We have an amazing, amazing country and state and county, but we have challenges. And I felt really strongly that the most important part um, of my commitment after coming out of law school and to this point of actually taking the oath of being an attorney and defending our Constitution was also being involved in the government level and making sure that I participated. And so I did as a citizen for a long time, tried to get really involved and realized that we were sometimes not getting the results, not getting even um, the FaceTime that we wanted. So that sort of led to me looking into the thought of running for office. And then, of course, there were really very specific environmental concerns that many, many, many people in the community had. And so when I saw our existing government start marching through public lands, I thought this is the time, now or never.
Well, before we dive into the why behind your, running and eventually getting elected, which congratulations, by the way, just tell us a little bit about you as a person. You're very outgoing and you're very loving to your family. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
So, if you are a young person and you in class get in trouble for socializing, you too could be like me someday. I have always really loved connecting with everyone around me. I find people fascinating, and I find our our area is so diverse and so amazing. So I that is my personality. I will always ask more questions and try to find out where people come from and where they're going. Um, I also like a book, and I will sit and read quietly for as long as I can, but it's usually not very long these days. I love salt water and the sand, and I love our rivers and lakes here. and all over. Um, I feel very, very grateful to the people of this area. So I try really hard to connect in more than one place. So I try to stay engaged in the schools, and I try to make sure that I am participating in activities outside of the routine ones to get to know our citizens. I know in this COVID era, it hasn't been as easy, but I look forward to a time that we're back out doing actual civic engagement face to face again, where we can all be smiling.
Well, with that being said, and thank you so much for that, tell me a little bit about your personal why and your journey into running and what your experience has been like so far.
So my personal why goes back to a fortune cookie that I opened, and it said the easiest answer is to act. And it stuck with me, and I have it in my wallet still. And it was from, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years ago. And I really fundamentally believe in my heart that if I'm thinking about complaining about something, anything, that I better then have some action in mind, whatever that is. So, the easiest answer is to act means put up or shut up. And when I tried to advocate on behalf of various citizen groups or environmental organizations, I found that there were frustrations on the side of a non-government employee as somebody who felt like an outsider. And it brought me to really wonder what it would be like to take all those lessons and to act, to get in here and actually dive in, remembering everything through the lens of somebody who was on the outside trying to get answers. So I think a lot of people who are following probably are familiar with Split Oak Forest. I heard about it for the first time at a League of Women Voters meeting, and I read through the documents that protect Split Oak Forest, and my immediate reaction was, this is a protected piece of public land. This is the most protected I've ever seen a piece of public land. This is lock solid perpetuity protection. And I questioned whether, you know, we even really needed to do much advocacy because it really looked very protected. Well, lo and behold, here we are 3 years later, still making sure that we're trying to keep it out of harm's way. And you're talking about a piece of land that once we've chipped away at that, or cut through it, and I don't care if it's whatever minimal alternative you're being explained, it's still public land. It's still your land. It's we wouldn't do that through the Grand Canyon. So the legal protections that are in place, they mean something, and they were trusted. We paid for those as taxpayers, and I believed that that was a worthy endeavor to try to pursue. And then when we couldn't get the answers, that it really prompted me to throw my hat in the ring. And then, Lee, the second that I threw my hat in the ring, people came out of the woodwork with stories of frustrations in their own days and lives that I didn't know about, that reinforced my commitment to serving the community.
So from a fortune cookie to Split Oak, and then I'm assuming that you live in District 1, and there's a lot of controversial things happening with development and water and challenges. You know, you seem like a very connected person to your community. So maybe talk about your journey into office and what this first week has really been like for you.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think we talk about Split Oak, and I think a lot of people who know me understand how I feel about that, and that there are environmental causes that are near and dear to me. I think sometimes when I start talking with residents that I know, constituents, neighbors, friends, that we're really able to connect the dots between the things that we found troubling about the decisions with Split Oak, along with our other concerns in our community. And, in District 1, we are considered the most rapid growing area in the country right now. So what does that mean to all of us? What it means is we need to very carefully look at every decision that's being made, every decision that's maybe not being made, um, and consider the repercussions of every resident, whether they've been there for 2 months or 25 years, and whether their home is worth $5,000 or $700,000. They all have the same right to a good quality of life in District 1 and all over Orange County, and I think we can do that. It's just going to take some really thoughtful decision making. There had been years and years and years of rubber stamping pretty much whatever came across the desk, and I think the outcome of that is, unfortunately, we do have some really bad infrastructure issues that we're going to have to go re-examine and try to address. Moving forward, we have to learn from those lessons and make sure that we're not putting good money before bad and throwing away people's tax dollars um, on things that aren't important while we're missing basic infrastructure. So, when I hear from people in District 1, it has largely been about their concern with growth, growth management, and the way that that ties into like the health, safety, and welfare of our community. And so, whether that means making sure that they can ride their bike without getting hit by a car, or that means that their air quality isn't completely impeded by exhaust fumes, those things all go into the same set of concerns about the way that we're growing.
So let's dive into that a little bit, because I'm sure that you have your personal top issues that really wanted to, like, motivated you to want to run, and then I'm sure along the campaign trail you met constituents that had concerns. And so I want to dissect those so that we can see kind of things that you might be privy to that maybe your constituents don't know, whereas there's probably some things that are really vocal in your community that you probably would want to address. So starting with you, what are some of those top issues that you feel are the most important?
So I think, it's, I think even with the little bit of time that I have put myself out there in the community, there have been paintings of me with a broad brush that environmental concerns or environmental issues are my only concern. And that is, it's tremendously important, because if we don't have clean air and clean water, really, we have, that's it. We have big problems. But it's not my only concern. I'm very, very in tune with and trying to do research and develop ideas for the ways that we can make sure that people who live here have higher paying, good economic, structural job options. So, that includes, of course, training people to do things that are in a variety of skill sets, making sure that we have made this a place where high paying employers want to come, and making sure we connect every person with the resources and opportunity to get to that. So, it's going to be a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot of diving in the weeks to come for how we can start making those inroads. I think you hear the words diversify the economy, and it sounds like we're trying to change the whole structure, and that's not the case. We have really some amazing things in place, and people who are trained to do things at those places that may be able to grow from there. We have a thriving, potential ecotourism. We have been the tourist capital of the world until COVID, and COVID devastated our tourism industry. And I don't think we throw that away. We keep the tourism industry, but we have to fine tune it. How do we make sure that we are still bringing people here, and then providing things that if we have to be distant or we have to be out in open air, that we can still host them and they can still come in, and the hospitality industry is still part of our overall economy. I think that in order to make sure that we can attract different types of high paying industry, we have to look at the way that we are allowing schools to get overcrowded before we're opening the schools. I think that we look at job growth as sort of this, thing in a closed box, but you think about being able to bring high paying jobs here by making sure that the companies that provide high paying jobs want to be here. And what are those quality of life issues that we can lock in now while we're rebuilding to attract them.
And I have a friend who is a retired city planner from South Florida who said that people in his office would make jokes about selling wetlands to Yankees, was the terminology, and that they wouldn't properly zone the communities. They would just build developments of homes
They drain.
without looking at where are the jobs going to be. Do we have enough water in our aquifers? It's about smart growth, right?
Exactly, and I think smart growth is another one of those. And I think you know what we should do sometime is do a glossary of buzzwords and then break them down, because I think smart growth is one of those buzzwords that right now, especially in Florida, every politician on every side uses. What does smart growth actually mean? Have we destroyed the tree canopy? If we have, we're not doing smart growth, because that is our carbon footprint right there. Have we made every surface in an area impermeable, and that means there's water getting through? If it's not getting through, if it's running off, we're doing damage. Those are the things when you talk about actual smart growth. And then we also talk about, can we get from our homes, these new homes, to our places of work and school and worship? And if we can't, is that smart growth? Because if you have to either get in your car and wait 2 hours to get there in traffic, or risk your life on a bicycle, then we've missed an opportunity for smart growth. So those are all components of smart growth that I think, when you hear that buzzword, what does that mean? It's inevitable that when, as a community we grow, that we will make space, but that doesn't mean that we don't also consider, infilling and making sure that we're not driving by 7 empty strip malls to build a new strip mall, and making sure that we don't abandon communities to, sprout up other communities that don't even have the infrastructure in place yet. So those are the things that, when you talk about smart growth, breaking that down into its components. What they did in South Florida was atrocious, because right now they're still paying the price. You look at some of the, there's some really major disasters, and we're all of our water in Florida is really at risk. And they drained the big portions of the Everglades, and the dredge programs down there, and we could do a whole nother one of these.
And then you tie that directly into flooding,
That's right.
right, in District 1 and some of those issues.
That's right. And we haven't, really been able to get the time that we need, and we're going to get this in the coming days. So if any of our constituents, our residents out in District 1 are watching this, know that we literally just got the keys to the office. and we are going to be reaching out and connecting and making sure that we get all the pieces that many, many, many of you have put together on your own and didn't know where to go with. There are some very well studied, intelligent people who have dug into these issues, who have really been able to find out what was going on with the water levels in the water bodies near them, but they've really not been able to do much with that information. So that is definitely on that is a high priority for us. Every human activity in our community has consequences. And so for us to look at what is a historic water level somewhere, or a place that it used to have water and is now bone dry, we have to look at what we're doing in that area to find the answers. Because yes, there are acts of God. We have hurricane season, we have rainy season, but when you look at 100 years of history on a water level, and then something different happened after they added lanes, then it takes not the greatest deductive reasoning to see that there may be a cause and effect based on our activity, on our development. And so we have to take ownership of that. We have to go back and find out how we can try to help make some of those.
It's crazy how so many of these challenges are all interlinked. I know one of the major things that you brought up just now too is the economy, and having good jobs that are equitable jobs, right? And smart growth doesn't inhibit that. I
No.
think that there's somehow um, jobs and development have been like politicized, where now people immediately look at buildings as a sign of a strong economy.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the case, right?
It's interesting. I agree. And as somebody who was not in politics before this year, it to me was a little mystifying to hear someone say, well, if you're going to slow down that type of growth in that area, you're going to affect affordable housing. And if you're going to enact something preventing water pollution, you're going to affect affordable housing. And to me, there is a real danger in presenting a choice between having a roof over your head or clean water. That's a false choice, and I think it's presented by people who are hoping to get some infighting amongst the people who want to do affordable housing and clean water.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think there's a lot of opportunity for us to try to redefine those things, to try to make sure that we are explaining what we mean when we say affordable housing. Well, what does that mean? What that means is that based on the salary of people who are here, what are we offering for rent? Where is that? Where is our starting point in our median homes? And are those things comparable? Do they have, is there some nexus there?
And now when I asked you this before about what are some of the biggest needs that along the campaign trail people had reached out to you or expressed comments, number one thing you said was flooding, the unchecked growth, but another thing that you said that really struck a chord with me was about health and also during this time of COVID-19, mental health.
Oh my gosh. We are in, I mean, I know I'm not going to use the word unprecedented because I've gotten to where I hate that word. You hear it like 27 times a day over. It's a sad time. We are struggling. We have to stay together. We have to check on each other. I know it's not the way we want to. Going up to someone's door can be life threatening. So checking on people is different now, but we still have to do it. I'm very concerned because we had social connections and then we had our work life, and sometimes when our work life was stumbly, it's okay because we had our social connections and our social support group. We are in a time now where those have collapsed on both sides for some people, and actually a lot of people. And I think, you know, when we talk about health issues and where we're going to be next, we've got to incorporate mental health and trying to make sure that we have addressed that as a public health issue. And I think, you know, I know that we're now in a place in our time that we shouldn't stigmatize mental health and we shouldn't stigmatize the diagnosis that comes with anxiety and depression and the things that go along with a pandemic. But we do. It still happens. So people are still concerned about where to connect or how to connect, and especially since they don't get to have those social interactions anymore with their church groups or with um, their neighbors. So, you know, going forward, we're really just going to need to be very vigilant about making sure that we incorporate those, thinking about those people in every aspect, right? So when we look at how we're going to restructure, if I love the idea that we've been able to do things like this, right? We can talk to you like this, but I still don't really know if you're doing okay. So how do we make sure that we are finding a place for you to get a hold of us or whoever you need to get a hold of if you're not doing okay? And to me, that's every bit as important. That emotional component is every bit as important as the high blood pressure or because they go together. If you are having anxiety and stress, you're gonna get sick. And if we're gonna try to get past a mass sickness, we got to keep you healthy from head to toe. So, and that's something that I think, and I hate to do this because it sounds like I'm a one-trick pony, but I'm going to tie it back in. I think this is where that outdoor thing really makes so much sense, because when we can't connect in our book clubs or church groups or our what our social circles were indoors, we still can go for a bike ride on the West Orange Trail, and we can paddle down a river, and those things then give you a connection and some sunshine on you, and you get the vitamin D and you get the fresh air, and so we're getting a health benefit, not just physically, but emotionally. And those should be accessible to everybody. It shouldn't take trying to plan, some strange transportation to get access to that kind of fresh air and clean water.
And I think my favorite thing out of everything you just said was really about the transparency and destigmatizing needing to ask for help or
Yes.
being homeless or having mental health issues. For some reason, I think it's just never really made it to mainstream, communication where people that are struggling, we're all struggling in our own way.
Exactly. That's
And
exactly right.
so taking away that stigma and being transparent within government,
Yeah.
I want to talk about that and in how you feel you can educate people and pull back the curtain.
Yes. Because I think the idea is, I think so. There's two parts I would love to like kind of dig in a little bit there. The first one is about that stigma and what you said, that everybody goes through a time where they think they're the only ones going through that time, and that there's no way it's going to get better. And that's a human experience. I would say if you haven't had at least some portion of that, you may just be a robot. Check your batteries, because that's just the human experience, and
Yeah.
it makes us compassionate people. It makes us, when we come through those things, once we're on the other side, we find ourselves more creative because it opened up places in your mind that you didn't know you had. But while you're going through those things, you have to connect, reach out when it's the absolute hardest. And I think we, as on this side now, I think we have an opportunity to make sure that if we can connect community organizations with the people in those communities, and being that bridge, being that link, it's such a tremendous service. And I think the other part of that is, actually, I just totally lost my train of thought. What was the second thing I was?
Transparency within the
Yes.
government and
Okay.
education.
Yes. Okay. So transparency in general. So I know, you all that know me know that I will say things like, "Oh, I was very emotional about that." So that's why she probably was like, "Well, tie that right in." I'm very transparent about my own feelings and passions about these issues, and also about the fact that I think one of the reasons why there's a general distrust in our government, and I'm one of those people, right? I'm constantly looking, digging, and researching, and I'm like, what is going on in there? There's a tower on a hill, and I want to know what's up behind that curtain. Is because we don't know. We don't know. We can find some minutes that are available. Orange County does a fantastic job recording the meetings, and you can go back and watch them. But there's a lot of that process that we still don't see. So I have a really strong commitment in the coming years of this tenure in really trying to draw back that curtain, and allowing you to come in and see these processes for, good, bad, or ugly. And they might be really boring. One of these might, I don't know, this might be really boring right now, but we may get into the nitty gritty if there's an interest out there. And if you want to know about how things move through an agenda item, a process on the agenda. If you want to know, I don't even know all these things yet. I'm learning. I'm getting there. If you want to know what happens to the CRC every 4 years, if you want to know what the Muni Code is, all these things that were sort of these mystical ideas, we can go through all those, and we can plot out a course for how to make sure that we're explaining the things that you think are interesting, even if you don't now. If something happens in your near future and you're like, oh, I think that's something that may fall into local government, we can talk about it. So please, make sure you stay in touch for that, and we can go over it. If I don't know the answer, we will dig for the answer. I've got some serious genius here. And so we may not know everything, but we may know who to pester and where to research, and we'll do it. And I think that's a huge part of feeling connected to our community and our friends and neighbors.
Well, I definitely appreciate that because I know it's very hard to know how to. I don't think they teach it enough in school, like
Oh,
civics and how the government works. I think I took like a half a semester on civics,
that's right.
so like
And even that was probably federal. Like probably got there was very little
exactly.
state. And it's not till I got to law school that we covered the state constitution. And there's many lawyers, that if it's not their specialty, then there's just a lot to it. The state constitution acts just as the same constitution like the federal constitution, within the things that the scope of state purview. And then, interestingly, Orange County, because it's a charter county, has its own mini constitution, which is our charter, and it really operates to to really break down all the things that fall into local government and how we take care of people here in Orange County and how we govern here in Orange County. But that encompasses a lot, and they don't cover it in school, and I think they should cover it in school. And maybe we'll make that, something that we can, you know, try to find out how to advocate for. Maybe we look at trying to figure out a way to make local government something that that is incorporated in curriculum, because there, if you look at from the first thing you do in the morning, flipping on your light, turning on your water, those are local government issues. You get to your first red light, and that's a local government issue. Your power, your all those things, where your firefighters are coming from, where your police officers are coming from, and those are all things that, I think if people understand them better, it's demystified, they're more plugged in, and we're all better for it. The more that we can plug in everybody, we are all better for it.
Yeah, and I want to get to a point where we can take questions, but the last question is just what's coming down the line. COVID is really surging, and the holidays are coming up. What do you think? I know we're going to do another virtual office hour, but just in the next few days, what's going to be your primary focus?
So it's a little bit nuts and bolts right this second, because we actually have a meeting on Tuesday. Once again, Orange County does a great job, Orange TV, of broadcasting those meetings. This will be my first BCC meeting, Board of County Commissioners meeting. That's the other thing, lots of acronyms. Maybe we'll do a whole thing on acronyms. The communications department called it the ABCs on the BCC, because there's just a lot. But it goes through, that meeting goes through agenda items that include appointments to different boards that oversee some of the many components of local government. And then some of the commission meeting is consent agenda items, which are things that were really being worked on for a long time that are in the final approval phase. And then we do those meetings every 2 weeks. There are often public discussions. There's always public comment. It's and the agendas are posted, and the minutes are posted. So if you're ever curious about something that happens and you want to see it after the fact, always, if you can't find it, email one of us, and we will find the link for you, because they're out there. Sometimes they're hard to get to, and especially even all the boards. So if you've heard anything about the boards that oversee Parks and Recreation or have planning and zoning, those boards are actually also agended, and there's minutes, and we can get you any of that information if you have something that you're looking for. A date will help, but we can always find it because they're there. And I think Orange County does a really good job of being diligent about producing all of those minutes and all of the videotapes that are from the past. You can archive all the way back. Sometimes it's just knowing where to dig. So we are here for you for that. And, I think going into the new year, I think there is going to be, fortunately, I think we're going to start looking at some real procedural things coming down the pipeline from our health and emergency management about the way we get through the next few months of, implementation of whatever, vaccine structure the state rolls out. A lot of moving parts when the county interacts with the state and the federal government. So, and I think that's another one of those, if you ever have a question about who does what, reach out to us, because I think that can be very complicated. And I think it's a tug of war sometimes, who does what. And I think you've seen it recently where, we have municipalities that there are numbers of people who are a lot more people in the hospital. And there's concern about what, the overall diagnosis numbers. And there are some municipalities that aren't going through that type of percentage positive. Well, those are different types of municipalities, and those local governments should have the ability to take care of their people and keep them safe. But our state government oftentimes has its own ideas and thinks they're going to, kind of ram through all of it and make sure that, what they think is working for one should work for all. So you see that tug of war with not just issues of health management right now, but those things come really on almost every aspect. So, that tug of war between the counties and the municipalities and the state and then the federal government, it's all a balance. And it's actually a beautiful thing because we live in a democracy and I love it. But democracy can be messy. So a lot of times those things, if they get confusing, once again, we'll dig right back in. I love doing that stuff. So local civics is.
Well, I'm really excited, and there's no questions so far, but there's a lot. Oh, there is a question. Go ahead. What is it?
Read it back into the mic.
Okay.
Nick Santos asks, how can I volunteer to help out? I am passionate about local environmental issues and want to network.
Okay, so Nick Santos says, how can I volunteer and help out? Apparently, he's very passionate about environmental issues and wants to volunteer.
Okay, so I I believe that I think I met you, Nick, in the campaign. And I apologize because we're probably all in masks or maybe it was on a Zoom. But if you have not already, email our office, which is now it's District 1 at ocfl.net, your information. It's interesting because there are a number of board openings coming up, and we would really like to talk about maybe, depending on what your interests are and how much time you can, because I know some of these things can be very time consuming. So we can talk about ways to plug you in and yeah, and just connect. We will definitely do that. So email us, and we are in transition now. So if you're tuning into this and you have emailed and we haven't gotten to you, it's not because we don't want to. We will get there. We hadn't linked the two aides, the commissioner, and then the office boxes until like yesterday. So now we were getting all of them, and it was like, why don't we have a lot of emails? And all of a sudden it was like 727 emails. Oh, there they are. So stay in touch. Send that email on over with contact information, and we can take a look at what's coming up. Go on the Orange County webpage and check out some of those advisory boards and see if there's anything that really strikes something in you and you think this looks like a good fit for me, because those are all where we really do need people who care and people who aren't there for other motives, right? We need you there because you really care about those issues, and I really think it's awesome that you're plugged in, and we're gonna need you. So thank you.
And I really think, we just need a little time to get acclimated, like Commissioner Wilson said with the email. But, please also follow us on social media and help to promote Commissioner Wilson's page. She is, which I love this about you, trying to educate everybody in the county, everybody in the state about how local government works. And so social media will be a really great way to help facilitate that education process. So the Instagram is at Nicole Wilson _D1, and the Facebook is at Nicole Wilson D1 without the underscore. And, staying plugged into the county website, and soon there'll be a NicoleWilson.org website up and running so that you can ask questions and what have you. So.
And I was thinking about not just the boards, but we can also. I would really love to connect with people in different areas and do actual projects. We can get out there and do some community-based, shoreline pickups and some community-based. I love the idea of adopt a lake and making sure that we are plugging in anybody who really wants to roll their sleeves up literally and help, and not losing that passion, because that type of ownership and our common good, our common interest in our water and our air and those are the things that will get us through. That's what's going to get us through. And so we're open to ideas, and I think we will be, once we sort of get the processes down, we're going to get a chance to really sort of dig in on some other creative program or problem solving. So, hang in there with us, keep a dialogue open, follow and share, and then that way we can make sure that every step along the way, that we are together, that we're in this together, and that we make sure that if, good or bad, that we stay on the same page. Yeah.
And thank you so much for your question. Just any closing remarks for anybody watching out there?
So I want to thank you all. If you're watching this now or if it's a playback, it's so important for me because it's been really hard not to see so many of you all face to face, and to thank you for everything along the way. There have been so many of you who have done things big and small all across this county to make sure that we got here, and I still need you. We still need to be together. And I just want to thank you for all of that leading up to now. And I want you to know that this is just the beginning. And so we have some, I think, some challenges, but some really great places for opportunity, because there's things that we're going to have to build back different now. And I think those are places that, with the type of problem solvers we have in our community and the type of creativity and intelligence, we will be able to do it in a way that other counties will model. So stay in touch.
Well, thank you so much for your hard work and dedication. I'm so, she's an incredible human being to the core. It's really awesome.
I have incredible people around me, and I am a very grateful human being. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
And we'll be in touch on social media about the next virtual office hours. I'm not really sure how your schedule is going to look, if we're going to keep them on Fridays, but we'll see.
You know what? Let us know. I mean, if there's somebody out there that's like, no, you know what? This is, you should do the Wednesday after your board meeting or whatever. We can definitely figure out something. I want to wish the people who celebrate and everybody happy Hanukkah, second night of Hanukkah. And I always think of Hanukkah as about, like, not just lights, but warmth. So I hope you can feel that warmth from us through here. I didn't like light anything on fire in the office, but I wish you all a very happy Hanukkah and happy holidays. This is that time of year. So yeah, we're thinking about you. Hugs.
Yay. Have a great evening, everyone, and happy holidays, and have a good weekend.